coming. I feel like we have quite a few people here and it's 2 p.m. So let's go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming again to MultiNet, our multicultural disability network. Today we're going to have Emmy Gardner, the CEO of Holy Cross Ministries, just kind of talk about her program and how it interrelates, correlates with disability and diversity in Latino communities.
Thanks, Sarah. I think since we're not a huge group, I would just love, so I was just talking with Rick because he was on before, and I would love, like, if others, I know, Joan, you're with the university, but Oslam, if I'm saying your name right, if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself and kind of where you work or what your profession is, just so we have an idea of who our group is. That'd be so awesome.
Sure. Yes, my name is Oslam. You're right. And I'm a board-certified behavior analyst working with kids with autism. And I'm also a doctorate student at the University of Idaho.
Awesome. And then Albert Oscola?
Yes, hi. It is Alberto. I used to be a provider in helping people with disabilities find employment. So I had a contract with Folk Rehab and the SPD. I was actually invited by somebody from USU, who I'm working with right now, in their disability department. Yeah.
Cool. Well, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mindy? Oh, maybe she had to step away. Is it Bora? Oh.
Hi.
Oh, hi.
Yes, I am the program director for one of the projects within the Institute for Disability Research Policy and Practice. And I run Utah Assistive Technology Program. We provide different services related to assistive technology.
Assistive technology. That's super cool.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Wonderful. And Dr. Ortiz?
Hi, everybody. Hi, Amy.
Hi.
Good to be here. I work here at the IDRPP in the Research and Training Division, and also I am part of the MultiNet project. So very happy to be part of this presentation.
Yeah. Joan, I didn't want to skip you, darling, but would you like to introduce yourself? Oh, you're on mute.
Oh, I'm having some camera issues.
You okay?
I'm with Utah State University with the UR Lend training program. It's a leadership training program to help people that are working with children and families with disabilities. I'm the training coordinator.
Thank you, Joan. Cool. And then Mindy?
Hi, everyone. I'm Mindy Dokis. I work on the MultiNet project as well. I do a lot of the content and social media, and happy to be here. I'll be live tweeting if anybody's on Twitter and wants to join me.
Oh, good for you. You are far more techno mama than me. Thank you for doing that. Cool. Hey, Carlos, glad you were able to join. We're just doing a quick intro. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name is Carlos Flores. I am the Health Outreach Manager for Holy Cross Ministries. I manage the program here, and then this is where we have the NEFF program, which Emmy is going to be presenting today. So happy to see you guys.
Yeah, awesome. Cool. I'm having some weird internet issues, so while I do the presentation, I'm just going to shut off my video because it kind of gets wobbly, but just let me make sure that you guys can see. We practiced this, Sarah and I did before, so hopefully it's gonna work fine, but let's give it a shot. When I share that screen, are you guys seeing? Is it coming up? Okay, cool. And let me just get you to the slides. Okay, so yeah, as Sarah said, let's see, there we go. Yes, so I'm going to talk about Niños, Especiales, Familias, Fuertes, which is special kids, strong families. And I think just to kind of lead out with that, Esperanza, who's been doing this since like 2007, was very clear about, we are very kind of asset framing and affirming of our families. These are really incredibly special kids. whose families are just super incredible. And so we always talk from that positivity frame of reference, not the disability frame of reference for them. So just that's part of why the title and how it kind of came up. But I just wanted to do a little bit of a background about our organization. Promise this will be quick and I'll leave plenty of time for us to chat, but I just have to brag. So interestingly enough, we are an organization that has, Holy Cross is a congregation of Catholic nuns that came out to Utah, of all places, in 1875 to build a hospital and for the miners. And they worked really closely with Brigham Young. So again, across faith perspectives, right, to build schools too for the miners and for the kids. And so I just always love to brag about this rich legacy and history that we have. The picture on the top right, you guys, that is actually on South Temple for anybody that's been down here in Salt Lake. It's called the Moreau Building. That actually was the first nursing school in the state of Utah. The Sisters of the Holy Cross created that school, and then they turned it over to the University of Utah. So, I mean, these are fierce, feisty, trailblazing women who I think because they were, you know, in their full-on gear, I'm not meaning to be sacrilegious, I mean, we're able to really do some amazing things in the community. Again, just kind of looking at social justice, looking at access for care. And so we kind of are a part of that legacy, right? And so what happened for us, so fast forward to 2022, I just want to share with you some stats, but what happened is they, like I said, they were in the healthcare and the education business. They got out of healthcare in the mid-90s. They had two hospitals, right? One right on South Temple called Holy Cross Hospital and one in Jordan Valley. And when they sold the hospital, they were very clear because they were a congregation based back in the Midwest in Indiana. And they just said, we don't want to leave Utah. I mean, so let's figure out what we need to do. So they did this listening tour, right? And they went around the community and talked. And again, this is in 1994. And they just really kind of found this, this kind of community and really resonated with the needs of the immigrant population that was here in Utah then. And so they really started this social service agency based on what the immigrant population back then was telling them that they wanted and needed. So just to give you a really brief overview, this is from our highlights document. So our data from 2022, you know, well over 3,500 individuals served. Again, as you can see there, 12% kids, 75% uninsured. And that is a huge chunk of what Carlos is dealing with there, really helping folks that are uninsured, underinsured, helping them with medical debt, helping them access healthcare and navigate that, which you guys all know is complicated enough, let alone if you don't speak the language or you may be illiterate in English or in your home language, right? 88, as you see here, 88% of our folks that we're serving live at the poverty level or lower, right? 90% of the clients we serve are of some level of immigrant population, and over 70% are female, right? So again, just it's our pride and joy to know that we are really serving. I mean, our mission says we serve the underserved community of Utah. We've created over the 25 years this niche really of a truly trusted relationship with primarily the Spanish-speaking immigrant community. But again, we serve all clients. I was just talking with folks in our legal department. There's a big need within a Samoan population that we're going to pivot and help and support. So again, don't just think of us as Latinx, although that is very much kind of our strength, right? So again, to talk about, you know, that tradition, I mean, part of our sort of tagline is a tradition of caring for our community's future. And as I said, when the sisters were kind of doing this listening tour in the community, what I love is how organically this organization grew. I've only been with the organization since 2018, but it's been around since 1994 as a 501c3 nonprofit. It really started with kind of the bottom piece of health and counseling and the promotora work, because think about it, they had a lot of folks from the hospital. So they basically went out into the community and were doing like health fairs and doing blood pressure checks and diabetes checks and referring folks into healthcare. As they got to know the clients, they were like, wow, you know, many of these families have like English language learner kiddos that are getting into kindergarten and then getting labeled special needs because they didn't speak English, right? So they, and a lot of our work was done here in the Salt Lake Valley as well as up in Summit County. And I know that sounds kind of crazy, like why Park City? But when you think about that, I mean, so much of that mountain town and that tourist town is supported by service industry folks, many of whom, you know, think construction, think housekeeping, think, you know, just service industry. Many of those were Spanish-speaking immigrants that were there. And so they started a education program called our School Readiness Program, where we took 3- and 4-year-olds that were primarily speaking Spanish at home and really helped them understand classroom, understand, you know, and learn English before they got to kindergarten so that they could be on grade level their peers. And we've been doing that for nearly 20 years. About 8 years ago, we actually expanded down, realizing we needed to be working with pregnant moms till the kids were 3, so that they could graduate and then come to school readiness. And so we researched and found this Parents as Teachers program, which is a nationally recognized evidence-based home visiting program. We do it with bilingual, bicultural home visitors that are trained, per fidelity with the PAT program. And then, as I said, it's the cutest thing in the world is seeing 3-year-olds in cap and gowns graduating, and then, getting excited to go off to their school readiness class the next year and, and get ready for kinder. So that started early in the 2000s. What was interesting, because you can think typical social service agencies, right? And we are doing a lot of advocacy, navigation, that kind of thing, but we're atypical in terms of a social service agency, in that we have a really large legal department. And that started back in the year 2000 when USCIS, which is United States Customs and Immigration Services, right? They're the ones that do all of our immigration law. They created a new status called a U visa. And again, I'm a proud U graduate, but hey, U visa. And the U visa was for anyone that was a victim of a crime. And because, as we were working with many of the immigrants, we were finding that many of them were women fleeing domestic violence or sexual assault or labor trafficking or human trafficking experiences. What did the sisters do? They're like, hey, we need to open a legal department. So they brought out 2 nuns who also happened to be attorneys and said, start a legal department, right? So I think what's unique about Holy Cross Ministries is that we really like to say, we've grown organically based on what our community says they need. And we provide these amazing wraparound services to the clients because we know that these are so that it can be a one-stop shop for them. And not to miss out on the last piece of this piece here. So in health, as one of our pillars, we have the promotora, and then we also have counseling. When I came, what I understood is that off and on, we'd had like a school social worker. When they had a grant, and then they would get a school social worker for a year, and then that person would go away when the grant year, retired. I am a clinical social worker by training. I spent 30 years at Intermountain Healthcare, 27 of them at Primary Children. So I am a fierce pediatric advocate. And so when I came, I was like, you guys, we need trauma-informed therapy. We really need to be providing this bilingual, bicultural healing for our clients. We don't need to be referring them out. And so fortunately, since 2018, we've had we now have 4 full-time bilingual, bicultural therapists that are well-trained in trauma-informed modalities, mindfulness. We study all things about the amygdala and how to kind of calm our nervous system and really help clients help them heal through their trauma, right? So that they're not kind of ruled by it, So, but where we're going to dive in a little bit more is in this other piece of health, which is the Promotora program, which is who Carlos oversees. And it is, again, like I said, I like to again brag about the amazing kind of legacy of these sisters, because they were forward thinking about community health worker work before that was even a cool phrase, right? They were doing this back in the 90s, right? And so it was taking folks that really were part of their community, knew their community, and were really working hard to connect and to help folks navigate the complexity that's healthcare, right? And so that's where, as Carlos said, where NEFF is nested. It's within our Promotora Community Health Worker Program. So I have to just say, and this is why it's in like big letters, again, 16 plus years of doing this NEFF program. Thank you, Dr. Ortiz. And I just have to give total credit to this amazing dynamic duo of Esperanza Arias, who's one of our community health workers. She's been around here for like 22, 23 years, almost since the inception of the organization. Dr. Wendy Hobson, again, who's an amazing pediatrician from the University of Utah, and obviously our NEFF families. This dynamic duo couldn't do what they were doing without that. So I'm gonna stop for a second sharing my screen, because what I want to do right now, I can get back to it for you guys, is let me share. Stop sharing. I'm going to share a quick video, and then we'll get into questions and more of that. So let's try another screen. And there we go. And just give me a thumbs up if the audio is coming through. But Sarah and I tested this, so I'm hoping it's still working.
I'm Dr. Wendy Hobson-Rohr. I am the Executive Medical Director of South Maine. I came to the University of Utah South Maine Clinic really so that I could continue the work that I was doing with families of children with special healthcare needs, primarily those who speak Spanish.
Bueno, de igual manera la doctora Hobson también es una doctora fantástica y llegó aquí en el 2005 y creó dentro de esta clínica algo bien hermoso como fue, ella se preocupó muchísimo por los padres y los niños que tienen necesidades especiales.
So in 2007, I started a program that we call NEFF, which is Niños, Especiales, Familias, Fuertes. It was designed because we knew that families didn't have the support they needed when they had children with special healthcare needs.
Having the NEFF program to give these families a community of their own, where they have a group of people that say, I get it, and they can support one another with, Dr. Hobson being able to connect and grow that program with Holy Cross has been a huge benefit.
Yo estoy viniendo aquí a la clínica desde hace 17 años. Lalo tenía 4 años. En cuanto a enfermedad o cualquier necesidad, la clínica y la doctora ha estado para mí, igualmente Holy Cross. Pues en todo, aquí en la clínica y fuera, yo la considero parte de la familia. A la doctora Wendy, sí, es parte de la familia.
You could tell the passion that she has for families, especially families with special needs or immigrant families. She definitely wants to make sure that they have access to health care, they have access to resources, and she'll do anything within her power to advocate for these families.
Yo creo que me voy a quedar cortas en palabras en decir qué es o quién es la doctora Hobson, porque ella es increíble, una mujer, una profesional entregada totalmente como persona y como profesional a la gente, hacia su paciente.
I think the most rewarding thing about working at a clinic like this is that I get the time to meet with the families, to really know the families. I love being a pediatrician and seeing the kids grow. When I come into the clinic, I just feel like I'm home and that I'm with my people and that I get to be doing the best that I can. It just makes me really happy.
All right, let me share the video screen back. There we go. There we go. Can you guys see the slides again? Okay, perfect. Let me continue on. So just as Dr. Hobson and as Esperanza mentioned, what you see here is the conference room at South Maine Clinic. And this is actually one of the sessions with the NEFF families. And actually up in the left-hand corner is one of our therapists who's kind of hanging out and spending time with the kids, while the parents, you can see in the conference room, are getting the presentation from one of the various presenters that come from Utah State to present. And what's super cool, and Dr. Ortiz knows this, is that this very much is a family, it's beyond a family support group. It really is a way to empower our families that have special needs kids, and they tell us who they want to hear from and what they want to learn about, right? So we're not kind of paternalistic, we're not kind of whatever you want to call it, like kind of thinking, oh, we know better because we're educated. It's like, explain to us, let us know what it is you want and need. We're happy to provide that. We're happy to find an expert to come speak on that topic for you. And so I think that's just been this amazing sort of collaboration between Dr. Hobson, between Holy Cross, and Dr. Ortiz and the folks in Multiland over the years that we've been able to do this. And again, that mom that you saw in the video, she's sort of like the power mom, and she is so like amazing and so like welcoming to all of the other moms and dads, and like, just, you can do this and it's okay. And it's very much that peer support that is just so incredible. So it's just so fun to watch. Like she said, her son started there when he was 4, and he's now 21, but I mean, they still go to South Maine, so again, just talking about our special children, our strong families, I think the key concepts that when I asked Dr. Wendy and I asked Esperanza, what do you want me to tell people about this? Because this is your program, guys, but what is it? And it really, I mean, they both said it is about empowering our families so that they can be their kids' best advocates, right? And providing opportunities and resources that they want. And so again, these are photos from some of our NEFF activities. We typically do a summer picnic. We do the in-services there at the clinic, but then we do have social get-togethers, right? So, this is from one of the summer picnics a few years back. We do a Christmas party as well, and so it's just really fun. But, as I was mentioning before, this idea that we really are working to serve the most vulnerable in the community, it really, when you think about like kind of the important concepts that kind of get at that intersectionality of culture and neurodisabilities, it really is helping to raise consciousness across the board, both from like, you'll hear Dr. Hobson talk about like how I had no idea, the complexity of what the families dealt with. And in a different video we did a few years ago, she was just like, I would see a family and then I would immediately just go, oh my God, I've got to get Esperanza. I've got to get Raquel. I've got to get, somebody to come help them. I don't know how to help them do this, but I know they do. And it was either, connecting them with resource or connecting them with, with access to services, that kind of thing. So it's understanding that we have to just kind of be aware and sensitive to all the social determinants of health that families are dealing with, not just the specific kind of physical or neurodisabilities that their child is dealing with. Again, just kind of growing that font of knowledge of having that better understanding of that intersectionality. Like when I think of the most vulnerable in our community, a lot of times, we talk in general at an organization about the immigrants in our state of Utah. But boy, just like amp that up on steroids to then have a family. I mean, think about 5-6 years ago when we were doing a lot of ICE was around doing raids in the turkey factories up north in Morgan and down in Utah County. And many of our mixed status or undocumented families work there. And what if I was a mom who was an undocumented mom who had a special needs kid? And what if I got deported? What happened to my kiddo? And who would have guardianship and what would happen? And so like we are on a daily basis kind of in that space of that intersectionality of how do we help and support immigrant families that have children with special needs, right? And I think the other piece that is just huge about Carlos and his team is really that piece of networking with community partners, right? To sort of, I always just say it takes a village, right, to raise a kid. So it's building that village of support to really help the children and their families. And that's something, again, we have a motto at Holy Cross. It was, again, one of the Mother Superiors years ago used to always just say, let's find what needs doing and do it. And then let's find other community partners to sustain that need and we'll move on to something else. And so for us, it really is not about duplicating services. It is about being very collaborative. It is about supporting. And so again, we don't provide the healthcare here at Holy Cross, right? But I mean, Dr. Wendy and her team does. We are there providing the social service support. And together we build that village to help support the families, right? So, yeah, I just wanted to say, like, I think it's hard to not do a presentation like this and not talk about sort of what have we learned over the last 3 years, with all of the stuff through COVID. And so want to just tell you, NEFF continued. I mean, this is kind of our drive-through. This is at the bottom of our building here. I think for us, what it did is it really raised the consciousness around the health challenges and health disparities. Because many of our families didn't have, laptops or tablets and all they had was data on their phone. And so just flipping to virtual wasn't necessarily easy, and continuing our interactions, especially for these kids who would be high risk kids in a pandemic situation, right? So we did a drive-through Christmas party, and Santa visited and the families pulled up and, we did all of that. And but I was just going to toss it out there to other folks too, just to say, I mean, we're there through, so we tried our best to maintain that connection with families through the COVID time. And by trying to flip virtual, we did have some slides I could have put up, but we had family names I hadn't crossed out yet of trying to do some of our NEFF presentations, over Zoom once we could teach folks how to do that. But I just wondered if anybody else wanted to share kind of what their experience was based on your kind of intersection with the community through the COVID time. Are there other things you all learned through that process? I'll stop sharing for a second. So if people want to talk, that we could do that. But yeah, did other folks? anything you want to shout out that you learned over the last 3 years?
I would like to share that one of my great learnings it is to be part of the group, is a family, and learning from their strengths, because for me it's a therapy when I am with the group, listening, just looking at how strong are those families, developing resilience in very challenging situations that they face, and how graciously or how happy they face life. For me, it's a therapy, and also is an example. I took all my children to those meetings, and when we were debriefing, it is amazing how much we can learn, and that's why I think it is an opportunity to learn both ways, not only the top down, because we have the knowledge, we have the expertise in many areas, but we don't have the expertise that those families about life and life experience. So, answering your question, after those years of COVID, when the first time we met, it was like a family reunion. So much happiness. Even we say no touching, that rule didn't apply at all. It was a beautiful experience. This emotional intelligence is so strong and come up, and you need to feel it. And that's why for the program that Amy is part of now, and Joanne as well, in your land, the experience is to feel it. It's just to have that interaction. But you need to approach as equals. You need to approach as also in the way of learning, not the top-down approach. It doesn't work.
Thank you, Dr. Ortiz. I couldn't agree more. I just think that's the piece, and I'm thinking again, being in the URLEN program, I find these sort of parallels. We're doing a book club as part of this too, and reading the book about it's about a Hmong family, right? And I think there's it's that the spirit catches you and you fall down. And the interesting thing is very much like with, again, this is not me. I've only been to several NEFF, not all of them, but talking to Esperanza and talking to Dr. Wendy, there is very much this sense within the Hispanic families of this is a special kid. It is that asset framing of their disability, right? And they are special because of what they have. Sorry, I just think it's so cool. And it is a family. And they support one another, and they bring, like people say, how do people find out about NEFF? It's like, Carlos says, it's through like word of mouth, and they learn from each other and they hear from each other, and they find another family, and you need to join NEFF. And it is very much like this insanely supportive support group. It's just incredible. Yeah. So let me continue. I've just got a few more slides for you guys, but hold on a sec. There we go. Share again. So yeah. I mean, again, definitely be thinking about kind of other things. I like to kind of always think, there were some positives out of COVID, right? Hopefully, on that other comment about seeking to better understand the intersectionality of culture and neurodisabilities, again, I just, like we were talking before, this is again from our summer picnic this year, this year. And again, we just have a blast together, right? And families and again, there's Esperanza. This is one of our therapists. Carlos is there. The families it is just a sense of family, and giving them time to come together outside of a medical setting space so that they can, they can just enjoy and have fun. And this was kind of their own little sort of experience of, Mickey Mouse and Disneyland and kind of being there. But I don't know if any of you that are on the call, like, do you deal with culturally different clients or patients in your practices, and you know, and how do you address that if that does come up? I guess it's just kind of again, another question. If people wanted to respond, I'll stop sharing so we can see our squares, if that works. Does anyone have anything they'd like to share?
I guess I'll go. So mainly working with woke rehab and the SPD is quite difficult in serving the Hispanic community, just because they're set to be serving the general population, which then translates to nobody knows how to specifically work with, like I said, the Hispanic community in a way of, like, you know, either documented or, you know, what barriers are they going to be facing? Do they have Medicaid? Do they have some of these resources, right? So when I was operating my business as for employment services, a lot of the times, I mean, I was the only Spanish speaking in the company, plus in the state of Utah, that actually was serving the community. And you know, a lot of the times there was a lot of barriers to helping them. But the best that we could do is just, you know, guide them to the right resources that they could tap into, or if not, try to acquire more information or knowledge on how we can help these families. But so yeah, I mean, it is quite difficult, especially when, you know, some of these bigger agencies, they don't know how to work with specific populations overall. I mean, that even includes refugees as well, you know. So
no, well said, Alberto. I mean, it's just so complicated, because I think especially many of the sort of government support resources, it seems like the system is like this, it's like this gauntlet you have to run, right? And it seems like it's, and I remember that when I was at primary, my social workers there would tell families that were applying for like Social Security disability for their kiddos, right? They would tell them, plan on being denied at least once or twice, but you have to persist, because this is just the way they weed out people, you know. And I say that before, you know, talking about the intersectionality of culture, right? So I mean, I just think the systems are set up not to bring people in, but to weed people out, right? And think about how complex that is, and then layer on language, layer on culture, layer on immigration status complexities. And you're absolutely right. It's just wild and crazy. Yeah. You know, anyone else have an experience they'd like to share?
I just briefly, for me, working with underserved population, even though I'm also a minority, how we define independence, because our majority of our program, our AT program, our mission is to support individuals to be independent using AT devices, having that access to AT devices and services. However, I realize in some cultures that independence is not their goal. So just understanding the different differences or their values, beliefs, I think it's important to learn that before you initiate anything. And that's my, I guess, journey last 4 years with this program, where even our culture, Korean culture, we do depend on our family members, community members. Not necessary that you have to be independent to be successful or have a potential, you know, that meaningful life. So, but then how do you increase that access? I believe that knowledge is power. So the more you share the available resources, I think, not to be aggressive, but yet in a way, you know, listen to their needs, what they really want to really seek for. And I think that's the key, just listening, finding out the needs of the community. But I'm still learning, and I'm just great to be part of this conversation today. So.
Awesome. No, and you bring up a really good point, because again, That's a Western value system, right? And understanding that intersectionality and really being present, like you said, to listening. Okay, independence as a value is a Western value, right? But maybe within, like you said, whether it's the Korean culture or other cultures that you're working with, it's understanding and respecting that's not a requirement, right? And I think for a lot of the Hispanic families too, these kids aren't seen as a burden, so you don't have to become independent, right? It's an honor and it's a gift to care for their loved ones, right? It's not a thing that oh my gosh, you haven't succeeded unless you're functionally independent, right? I think the closest we come to that is when we had those scares about ICE coming and deporting folks, more just from the context of, have you set up a guardianship plan? Do you have a safety plan? You know, God forbid something should happen to you, what would happen to your child, right? But that was, again, coming from a different place because of immigration, not because of this Western mentality of your kids got to learn to be independent and on their own kind of thing, right? So I really appreciate you raising that, definitely. Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Bora. Yeah. Cool. And I think I just have a couple, anyone else? Okay, let me go back to the slides, and thank you guys for being patient with me and my slow techno adjusting.
Can I make a comment also about?
Please do. Go right ahead. Go right ahead, Eduardo.
Yeah, about this level of independence, I agree. In some cultures, it might have a different perspective. And when the system it doesn't work in the same way, we are going to have different outcomes at different points. I still remember when parents have said, you know, my child never is going to leave our house. He's going to be with us forever. But the system is working in a different way because they expect that the person is going to be independent. And there are many resources that sometimes are not used because of that difference in the way how cultures act. And that is important that, you know, bring awareness because those resources that the system give is important that people is aware, and otherwise we also are missing opportunities that potentially are needed later on.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. And then I see someone in the chat. Let's see. Oh, you're seeing the presenter view? Okay, let me try again. Is it still showing presenter view for you guys?
Yeah, it is.
Weird.
It's
Okay, let me
just
try.
the weird technical stuff.
The joy. Okay, let's try again. How about this way? There's two different screens. Is that showing just
Perfect. That's
okay.
Perfect. Thanks, Emmy.
No problem. There. Now I'm learning. There is the screen that is just the slides versus the PowerPoint presentation. I guess that's when it shows the presenter view. Okay. Cool. Yeah, so then next, let's see if I can get these slides to advance. Yeah. So the other piece, and again, I put this one on because again, this is at the clinic. So Eduardo recognizes the space, right? But this idea of networking with other community partners and to build a village, we actually, this was one of the times where the NEFF families asked for a yoga class. I mean, think about that. So it's also, yes, we're caring about the kids, we're caring about the families, addressing the caregiver burden. They really wanted to have a yoga class. So what do? We found yoga instructors, we connected them with that, and we had this awesome yoga class at the clinic, right? So it's again, like you were saying, Bora, it's like listening, asking what are their wants, what are their needs, right? And definitely, you know, supporting families so that they know that they're doing good self-care. When I was in mental health at Primary Children's, I used to always say, guys, we always have to do really good self-care. We have to get away from work, go do our own things that refill our reservoirs because we have to come back to give again, right? And so it's that same sort of concept. How do we support the families that are supporting our super special kids, right? And so I think if anything, I mean, I thought we did a great job in helping families when I was at Primary, but let me tell you, having retired from there and then coming to Holy Cross, like this piece about, you know, how do you create warm handoffs from either your practice or your side of service where you're seeing clients or patients for, you know, for the families that you're serving, because, you know, I just am curious because it's super complicated. And again, you know, I would be saying this even if Carlos were not on the call, our community health workers, I mean, they are just so masterful at helping. And when I say masterful, it's bragging about their ability to balance empowering with walking alongside and navigating and helping families, right? They're not going to do it for, but they're going to help teach them how. But it's complicated and it's confusing. And Social Security, you know, disability is complicated, and you know, DWS is complicated, and doing charity applications for medical debt is complicated, right? And so just seeing how they work in partnership, you know,
We're good, Joe?
yeah. Oh, Jody, did you want to say something? So maybe she didn't realize she was like, okay. Yeah, so I mean, I guess that's one question that I think of, especially when we're talking about the NEFF families and the kids, and just understanding life is complicated already. So like just that sort of personal as well as professional awareness around what are we doing to help make those smoother, warm handoffs. And so I just don't know if anybody has an example or an experience that they can speak to of a client that they've worked with where they've, you know, shared with another community organization, or how they've been able to kind of make that that connection go as smoothly as possible. Nobody?
Well, recently I collaborated with some individuals actually through a MultiNet meeting. I was able to do a presentation to the Navajo tribe. Also, one of our board members is a tribal member, and through him I was able to go to a health fair out there at the Paiute tribe, and we were able to you know, do a presentation, let everybody know about our services and how we could help individuals with disabilities. I think one thing is just having an open communication and making them aware that we do have things that we can do to help them. We've tried to reach out more to the Hispanic community. Communications has been somewhat of an issue occasionally. We do have a couple volunteers that speak Spanish. We have an app on our phone that's a translator that we use. It's called the Talking Translator. So you can click on it, speak in English, and then it'll give it in Spanish.
Wow.
And they speak, you push a button and it'll translate it to English. So that's helped us with a few individuals that we've helped here with you know, some services. We've also we're getting a new office manager, and she speaks Spanish, so I think that's going to make it real easy for us, or easier, I should say.
Yeah. Thanks, Rick. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, for sure. It is. It's just, it's realizing the sort of ability to speak in your own language, right? And share is just super critical so that people can feel like they're able to express themselves. That's great. Yeah, that's wonderful. Other folks work with collaborative partners?
Mine isn't necessarily disability focused, but something that I volunteer a lot here in Logan is with CAPSA. It's an organization, and because I'm bilingual and I speak Spanish, I really like helping with translation. So they do workshops monthly for those who are Spanish speaking and are involved with CAPSA. And I think one of my favorite things of translating and volunteering for that is seeing these like people get connected with other resources out in the community, because not only do I learn, or not only do they learn, but like I learn so much, like not just from them, but from other resources in the community that I personally have like offered or like mentioned to other people that I know too. And so it's just really cool to like be a part of that experience for people, especially when there's that cultural barrier, whether it's language or stuff like that, and being able to help them while also finding ways to like help others that are close and personal to you.
That's awesome, Sarah. Thank you. That's cool. That's super cool. Yeah. I just always find it fascinating. When I first moved here to Utah, I was working at a refugee resettlement agency, and I just find culture fascinating. And so I was working with a lot of Vietnamese, Cambodian, Laotian, Hmong refugees that had come to Utah, right, that were resettled. And just, yeah, it's like Dr. Ortiz was talking about before. It's like just seeing the resilience in people. I mean, I just feel like I'm always learning, and I'm just always humbled by, wow, like, look at what they've been through and look at what's happening, And so you're right. Like when you can help them make those connections, we learn as well, and in addition to just kind of sharing and connecting them with the resources that they need. So thank you for sharing. Yeah. Anyone else? Okay. I think I just have one more slide, but it really is just if people have, so I'll just, I have my information there. I know Sarah said she's recording it, but I'll stop so we can see each other. And yeah, if people just have any general questions, or I don't know, Eduardo, if you want us to, talk any more about the sort of intersectionality of culture and neurodisabilities, or if there are questions you think that we didn't address that we could as a group, I'm, open to that too.
I think that your presentation is great, Amy, and is an opportunity to learn from the Holy Cross perspective, the fantastic work that you are developing, and that's why actually I have a question for you about your vision, how you see the program, how would you like to see the NEFF families in the next 5 years or in the next 10 years? Because it is fascinating to see, like in the video that you put, Hortensia, the mom, and Lalo, the child that is not a child anymore, is a young man. When they start in the NEFF program, he was 4 years old. And so much change now. And, if you know them, is a joy to meet them, and always laughing and happy. So that is the question. How would you like to see those families and the program in the near future, as well as in the long run?
That's a great question. Eduardo. And, Carlos and I were chatting about this just a couple of weeks ago, and because it's interesting to watch, and correct me if I'm wrong, Carlos, but I think early on we had more kids probably that were coming not so much from the neuro disabilities kind of on the autism spectrum, but more kind of physical disability, wheelchair bound kiddos, right? And now we're starting to see more kids within that autism spectrum as well, right? In our NEFF group. And I think, if you ask me my vision, it really is just wanting to continue to respond and adapt and grow the program based on what the families want and need. And for me, it is still sort of journeying with them, right? As Aldo becomes, 30 and 35 and 40, and like what happens? Yes, it started with the kids, but again, for these special kids, right? it's walking that journey with them through their lifespan, right? So it's like, how do we continue to grow and adapt now that, again, when we started back in 07, they were all really little, but what are their needs now that they're young adults? And are we addressing those needs and the needs of the families with them? And what about relationship and how are they interacting with family, right? And so just continuing to kind of do what, I guess, those developmental kind of just growths and changes with them. And I think the other piece, Eduardo, is being a part of URLN now. So much of the work that I do is in direct service, like what Dr. Wendy and Esperanza and Carlos and his team do. But I really want to use my role here at Holy Cross and my voice to sort of be that advocate on a macro level too. Carlos and I were just at a press conference last week because for those of you who may or may not know, CHIP is expanding and it's expanding come January 1. And so kids, this is the first time that children who may be undocumented will be eligible to apply for CHIP. So immigration status won't be taken against them, right? And this happens, January 1. And it's a huge, huge hurdle. And it was a huge effort, of love, I have to say, from, Senator Luz Escamilla working across, political lines with Representative Dunnigan to make this happen. And so it's kind of a test case. But for me, like so much of the work that I'm trying to do now is seeing what we do on a day-to-day basis and trying to be the voice at a macro level, at a state level, to help impact change, whether it's legislation, whether it's policy. Because I truly believe every human deserves, right? They deserve to have access to help and support and services, And so it's like, how do we just become better humans to all humanity, right? Not just this group or that group. And to me, I think that's the pride of Utah. We are a very family-centric place. We are a very welcoming place, but our policies are not. Our insurance is not. And so our healthcare system is not. And so how do we truly start to better embrace the Utah ways, as our governor talks about that. So thanks for asking, Eduardo. But yeah, I have big visions and pictures. I am definitely, the Pollyanna dreamer about we can really make a change in the world.
Thank you for sharing it.
Any other questions, you guys? Or comments, ideas? Well, I just want to thank you. We appreciated the opportunity to share with you a bit about Holy Cross and especially about our NEFF program. And if you guys ever want to just come observe or hang out or be, see kind of NEFF in action, definitely reach out to me or Carlos. We'll connect you for sure. Yeah. As Eduardo said, you feel it. You just feel the sense of community in that room. It's amazing.
I did actually have a question for you.
Yes, go ahead.
So are you guys planning on expanding your NEFF program into other services, perhaps employment services or summer programs, stuff like that at all? Or
that is a great suggestion. I don't know that we've ever thought about that. I don't know, Eduardo, have the families ever asked about that in terms of employment or like a summer kind of enrichment program? Have you heard?
Yeah, that would be great. And that is part of the new challenges that they are looking for. As I was saying before, sometimes the perspective, the cultural perspective need to start early. And as much information or as much aware they are at, the better they can be served. I think it's a great suggestion for expanding because the needs are there. The needs are. And I am pretty sure that the wants as well. So working with those families is the best experience that programs can have.
Yeah, we do a summer program now, but it's based up in the Wasatch Back, so up in Park City. But it would be an interesting thing to kind of have this cross-pollination between our Promotora program and our education program and see if we could create something in terms of like a summer enrichment for, you know, NEFF families. And then I'm also thinking when you said employment, like we have, just because our previous finance director has a child on the spectrum himself, and we work with, like we have, you know, I mean, we're an agency that obviously has, you know, HIPAA compliant, and we have to be HIPAA compliant for our clients and records. And so we have shredder bins, right, for our records. But we work with, is it Columbus Community Center? And he was purposeful about, we're going to pick that place because that's a wonderful sort of, not sheltered workshop, but a workshop opportunity for folks with disabilities. And so I didn't even think that we could like reach out to them and maybe connect some of our NEFF families with kids who may want to kind of explore employment opportunities or things like that. Because we've had a contract with them for 4 years now, you know. So yeah, that's a great suggestion. Thank you for suggesting that. We'll
And just a follow-up question on that too. You mentioned you had a 4-year contract with Columbus. Is that what it is? Oh, okay. And it's mainly just going to their facility, just working on their different shops that they have there type deal.
Well, no, they come here. So they supply us with the sort of recycle bins, and then they come on a regular kind of, like, I want to say it's like every couple of months, and they come and empty them, and then they shred our stuff for us. And yeah, so it's their service that they provide to us as a nonprofit.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. But that's a great suggestion. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Emmy, for sharing that presentation. And thank you everyone for coming. I know I learned a lot, so I hope that was the same for everyone else. But just before you guys head out, I just want to let you guys know to just keep an eye out, because we will also be having another community of practice in November. We're hoping to do these monthly. So just keep an eye out. Please give your thanks to Emmy and reach out if you're ever interested in learning more about the NEFF program. But thank you so much, everyone.
Have a wonderful afternoon, everybody.
Yep.
Thanks. Take
Thank
care.
you. Bye.